Have you ever had someone say something to you that seemed simple at first, but then it lingered? Like it got under your skin, found a quiet place in your heart, and just stayed there? Maybe it was just a sentence, a memory someone shared, a passing thought. But for some reason, you couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because it was flashy or dramatic, but because it felt true. It felt like someone had finally said the thing you didn't even know you needed to hear. You ever felt that? Maybe it happened in the middle of a quiet conversation. Maybe it came from someone older, wiser, someone who's lived through seasons you're just now entering. Or maybe it hit you in the middle of an ordinary day, when you were folding laundry or pouring a cup of tea. And suddenly, there it was. That sentence, that truth, that shift. Well, today, I want to share something like that with you. Because there's a retired university professor, a quiet man with a gentle voice and 40-plus years of experience teaching, observing, and sitting with people as they aged, who's been speaking deep truths about growing older. Truths that made people pause, cry, reflect. Not from fear, not from sadness, but because someone finally put into words what it feels like to age, to change, to still matter. He said some things that truly moved people, especially older adults. Many said they felt seen for the first time in a long time. Like someone reached through the noise and said, "You're still here. You still count. And there's beauty in that." So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 5 powerful insights from this professor. These aren't lectures. These are truths from the heart, for anyone who's over 60 or cares for someone who is. By the time you get to the end, you may never look at aging the same way again. This isn't just advice, it's a kind of wisdom you carry with you. Quiet, strong, and it might just change how you live the rest of your life. So before we dive in, I'd love to know you're with me. Comment below with "I'm here" if you're ready to hear something that might just stay with you forever. And if this kind of heart-to-heart guidance matters to you, go ahead and subscribe to Healthy Senior Advice. This is where we bring you trusted wisdom, straight from the heart, one story at a time. Let's start with something simple, but powerful. Stop apologizing for slowing down. The professor told me about a woman in her 70s. Kind, sharp, always trying to be polite. But every time she got up from her chair, she'd say, "Sorry, I'm so slow." When she fumbled with her purse, "Sorry, I'm just getting old." When her voice shook while telling a story, "Sorry, I talk too much." He stopped her gently one day and asked, "Why do you think speed equals worth?" She looked surprised. No one had ever asked her that. But think about it. We live in a world where fast means efficient. Busy means important. And slowing down? Well, that's often seen as falling behind. But aging, real aging, isn't about falling behind. It's about finally stepping into your rhythm. It's about moving through life with a little more grace and a lot more presence. The truth is, your pace has changed. And that's not a flaw. That's an invitation. Slowing down doesn't mean you're fading. It means you're finally living in a way where you can notice things, where you can feel the moment instead of rushing past it, where your time is your own, not some clock on the wall. But I know, deep down, many of you still feel like you're somehow in the way. Like people are waiting on you. Like you're slowing things down. And somewhere along the way, that makes you feel like a burden. You're not. Let me say that again. You are not a burden. The professor always said, "Your pace is your power. Walk slowly. Speak thoughtfully. Live richly. You've earned that right. In fact, you've earned the wisdom that most people rushing around will never have time to find. So let the young folks run. Let the world keep spinning fast. But you walk at your own speed now. Because this chapter of your life, it's not about keeping up. It's about showing up, fully, gently, and completely. Now, even when we learn to embrace that slower rhythm, there's something else that creeps in for many older adults. Something that's even harder to let go of. It's not our speed. It's our identity. 2. You are not your job, title, or role. The professor once said something that really stuck with me. He said, most people don't realize how much of their worth they tied to their title, until the title's gone. He saw it all the time. Former engineers, teachers, nurses, business owners. People who spent decades building careers, raising families, being responsible. Then retirement came, and silence followed. And with it, a strange question many didn't expect to ask. Who am I now? It's a hard question, because for so long, you've been defined by what you do. You were the provider, the fixer, the planner, the mom, the mentor. You were the one people needed. But now, the kids are grown. The job is over. The phone doesn't ring as often. And it can feel like you've disappeared. But let me remind you of something. You are not your job. You are not your title. You are not the roles you once played. You're the person behind all of that. The one who showed up day after day, through joy and pain and ordinary days. You're the soul who sacrificed for others. The voice of reason. The quiet comfort in the room. That hasn't changed. That never left. If anything now, in this part of your life, your presence matters more than ever. Because now, you can be more than a job description. You can be a listener, a storyteller, a guide, a keeper of history. So if you've been feeling like you lost something when you retired, maybe it wasn't a loss. Maybe it was a return, back to yourself, back to who you were before the roles. The professor called it a rebirth, not a retirement. He said, now's the time when your wisdom gets to speak freely. No deadlines, no uniforms, no office doors. And I believe that. You still matter. Your stories still matter. And who you are, just as you are, is more than enough. Now, we've talked about pace. We've talked about identity. But what about something even more invisible, yet deeply painful? Let's talk about loneliness. And not just the kind where the house is quiet, but the kind that settles in even when people are around. Because many won't say it out loud, but it's there, and it deserves to be understood. Let's get into that next. Let me tell you about a student the professor once mentored. She was young, full of energy, studying psychology. And every Saturday, she visited an elderly woman who lived 2 doors down from her apartment. It started as a simple gesture, bringing her groceries, checking in. But one day, the student asked, "Do you have any other visitors during the week?" The woman smiled softly and said, "Just you, dear. You're the only one who remembers I'm still here." That hit the professor hard. He said it was a reminder of something we don't talk about enough. Loneliness isn't just sadness, it's danger. You see, loneliness isn't just emotional. It's physical. Studies show that chronic loneliness increases your risk of death more than obesity, more than smoking. It affects the heart, the brain, the immune system. It shrinks your world, literally and biologically. And yet, so many older adults sit quietly with that feeling every day. You might hear someone say, "I'm alone, but I'm fine." But sometimes, that's not true. Sometimes, that's a quiet cry, the kind that's hard to admit even to yourself. The professor used to say, "We don't outgrow the need for connection. We just get quieter about it." But here's the thing. Connection doesn't always have to come from others. It can start with you. Call someone today, not just to check in on them, but to let yourself be seen. Write a letter. Join a group, even if it's just a book club or a weekly chat at the local center. Take that first brave step. Don't wait for others to reach out. You can be the one who opens the door. Because being remembered, being missed, it starts with being visible. And if this insight feels heavy, it's because it is. But there's hope in it, too. Because the moment you say, "I don't want to feel invisible anymore," that's the moment something begins to change. Now, let's shift, just slightly. Because as powerful as it is to connect with others, there's another relationship that matters just as much. And that's the one you have with your own body. For, your body is not the enemy. The professor once spoke with a woman after a seminar. She was in her early 80s, strong-willed, full of life, but clearly frustrated. She looked at him and asked, "Why does my body keep betraying me?" He didn't rush to answer. He sat with her words for a moment. Then, quietly, he said, "Maybe it's not betrayal. Maybe your body is just tired from carrying you so well, for so long." That moment, it stopped her cold. And maybe it stops you a little, too. Because it's easy to feel like your body is turning against you as you age. The stiffness, the slower healing, the creaks and aches and reminders that things aren't as easy as they once were. But here's what the professor wanted every senior to know. Your body is not the enemy. It's not failing, it's adapting. It's trying its best to support you with every step, every breath, every heartbeat. And yet, we treat it like a traitor. We say, "Ugh, my knees," or "I hate how I look now," or "I'm useless like this." But imagine saying those things to a friend who stood by your side every single day, through every storm. Would you speak to them that way? Because that's what your body is. A lifelong companion. A vessel that's protected you, moved you, healed for you, even after all the wear and tear. The professor always urged this one small shift. Gratitude. Instead of resenting your body for what it can't do, thank it for what it still can. Thank your hands for every dish they've washed. Thank your legs for every place they've taken you. Thank your eyes for every sunrise they've shown you, even if now they need a little help to see clearly. A little kindness toward yourself. It goes a long way. Because when you stop seeing your body as a battleground, you start seeing it as a blessing. Now, there's one more insight. The most tender one the professor ever shared. And when he spoke these words, the room got very, very quiet. Because it wasn't just advice. It was something deeper. Something that made people cry. Not out of sorrow, but out of release. Let me share it with you now. This is the one that stays with you. Let's go there, together. There was a man. Late 70s. Well-dressed. Soft-spoken. He stayed behind after one of the professor's lectures. Waited until the room had emptied. And then, quietly, he said, "I think I've wasted my life." The professor didn't flinch. He just looked him in the eye and gently asked, "Did you love someone?" The man nodded. "Yes," he said. "My wife. My children. My brother. I loved them all deeply." The professor leaned in a little closer and said, "Did someone love you?" The man's eyes filled. "Yes," he whispered. "They did." The professor smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then it wasn't wasted. Let that sit for a moment. Because somewhere along the way, we started to believe a lie. A lie that says your worth is measured by your achievements. By how big your career was. How much money you saved. How many things you left behind. But the professor believed, and he taught, that the most powerful legacy is not made of trophies or titles. It's made of presence. It's in the quiet moments. The bedtime stories you read to your grandchildren. The phone calls you made when someone was hurting. The steady way you held your family together without ever asking for recognition. You don't have to be perfect to leave something meaningful behind. You just have to show up. Fully. Honestly. Kindly. And here's what's wild. No one remembers if you always had the right answers. But they will remember if you sat with them when they cried. If you forgave them when they messed up. If you stayed when it was hard. That's the legacy. Not perfection, but presence. The professor used to say, "Our legacy isn't built in grand moments, it's built in consistent ones." So, if you've ever wondered, have I done enough? Maybe the question isn't about doing more. Maybe it's about being more available, more real, more loving. You don't need a statue. You don't need a book written about you. You just need one person who says, They made me feel loved. That's enough. And maybe that's everything. Because these words, simple as they seem, they have opened emotional doors that many people had locked shut for decades. They've helped people forgive themselves for not being perfect, for not becoming everything they once dreamed, for simply being human. So if your heart feels a little heavy right now, if you're blinking away a tear or sitting in silence with a lump in your throat, know this. That feeling means you're alive. It means you're still capable of loving, reflecting, becoming, even now. And that's a beautiful thing. But we're not done yet. Because now that you've heard these 5 insights, let's take a moment to sit with them, to feel their weight, and to talk about what you can do with them, starting today. Let's bring it all together. Stay with me. You've taken in a lot. Maybe you're feeling a swirl of things right now. Grief for what's past, pride for what you've survived, regret for choices you can't remake, and a quiet hope for what's still ahead. If so, that's normal. Because aging doesn't melt feelings away. It gathers them like pages in a well-worn journal. So let's breathe together for a moment. Feel the weight of those pages, then flip them with care. Aging doesn't have to be a slow fading of color. It can be a deepening of every shade, richer blues, warmer golds, gentler whites. It can be the season where presence comes into sharp focus and purpose grows roots. Peace isn't the absence of change. It's the acceptance that change still holds possibility. And possibility starts small, one clear action at a time. So, right after this video, pick up the phone and call an old friend, even if it's been years. Jot a memory on a scrap of paper, capture it before it drifts away. Stand in front of a mirror, place a hand on your chest, and whisper, "Thank you," to the body that's carried you here. One tiny step can open a window. And a single open window shifts the feel of an entire house. Remember, you are not alone. You are not behind. You are not done. You are exactly where your story needs you to be, and that is more powerful than you may realize. Hold that truth close. Let it steady your heartbeat. Let it turn the next page with confidence. Before we part ways, let's gather the 5 insights once more, like smooth stones in your pocket. 1. Stop apologizing for slowing down. Your pace is your power. 2. You're more than your role or job. Identity lives deeper than titles. 3. Loneliness needs attention. Connection is medicine. Reach out. 4. Your body is your lifelong companion. Treat it as a friend, not a foe. 5. Presence, not perfection, is the legacy that lasts. Show up, that's what people remember. Which of these spoke loudest to you? Was there one that surprised you? Or one you've been quietly resisting? Share it in the comments. Your story might be the lifeline someone else needs tonight. And if these words stirred something meaningful inside you, go ahead and subscribe to Healthy Senior Advice. Here we trade in wisdom, warmth, and practical tools for living well. At any age, but especially in the seasons that most deserve gentle care. Thank you for spending these minutes with me. You matter. Your story matters. And your journey, believe it, is far from over. So stay kind. Stay curious. And I'll see you in the next video.